Hello, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews, and this is my review for Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 3, Episodes 1 through 5. So I'll start with an overview of my thoughts on the first 5 episodes, and then I'm going to go through each of them one by one and give more specific details of my thoughts, and then a rating out of 10 out of each of them. Now, episodes 1 through 4, I've already reviewed on my Facebook page. You should follow me on Facebook at Alyssa Jean's Reviews if you don't already. So what I'm going to say here is not going to be drastically different than what I have already written, but I will probably add some things. And I'm not changing any of my ratings out of 10. I have a habit of doing that too much. I'm going to wait at least until the season is over before I change my ratings out of 10. So whatever rating I gave an episode on my Facebook page is going to be the same rating here, except that I have not yet reviewed episode 5, so this will be the first time doing so. So before I get into the individual reviews, an overview of the first 5 of season 3. So the first 3 were very promising for me. Like not that they were strong episodes, not that I would say it was a strong start to the season, but a promising start to the season. I felt optimistic that season 3 could outdo season 2, having just watched season 2, and my big complaint there was that there weren't as good as the through arcs. The character stories that went throughout the season were weaker to me than they were in season 1, and season 3 started off strong. We had the character arc with Ortegas. Finally, she gets one, which I found to be very interesting. Her dealing with her trauma and how that affects her. And then also the relationship with Batel and Pike and how that is affecting Pike and how that will affect him as a captain moving forward. And what's going to become of Batel? We don't know. So that I found that really interesting. Also, we got the completion of a shitty storyline from season 2, which was the Spock and Chapel one that I hated. And we got a nice little wrap-up conclusion to that. So I was feeling through the first 3 episodes, season 3 is looking pretty good. Then episodes 4 and 5 kind of undermined all my confidence. Now I'm thinking season 3 is going to suck because I'm not as confident about the through lines, and there's been a new storyline introduced that I really don't like. And I'm looking ahead at the last 5 episodes, looking at the titles. One of them I already know is going to suck. That's the 4.5 Vulcans one. We saw the sneak peek scene last year at Comic-Con, and it's a piece of shit. And unless it is not what I expected, then maybe it could save itself from being totally terrible. But there's no way an episode that contains that scene is a good episode. Unless that's like just a dream that Spock has, and the episode is about something else entirely. But if it's just a dream Spock has, the title wouldn't be 4.5 Vulcans. So it's gonna suck. And then that's episode 8. Episode 7 is titled "This is Starfleet." Now, another reviewer recently said the episode titled "This is Starfleet" coming up. That's probably going to be our documentary or documentarian episode. Ortegas's little brother is going to make a Starfleet documentary, and "This is Starfleet" sounds like it would be a title of a documentary, so that's probably going to be that episode. So when I think of that, what that makes me think of is, that scene in episode 5 where Pike is at the conference table and the camera is like buzzing and he's like, you're seeing from the camera point of view all of a sudden, and he's like, turn that camera off or whatever. Like a lot of that. That's what, like, and I can picture Luan saying, do I look good? Am I ready to give it? And Spock saying, what do you think about my, and just them turning it into like a stupid documentary, and doing it kind of in the style of the TV show The Office or Parks and Rec or something like that. And Lower Decks has done an episode like this, and I hated it. So if this is what Strange New Worlds does, it's not likely that I'm going to love that episode either. So there's already 2 down in the last 5. So I don't know what the other 3 are going to be. I have an idea about the finale, but that's kind of pertains to episode 5. So I will get more into that when I get into my episode 5 review. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it. Let's start with season 3, episode 1. Okay, we start with the season premiere, Hegemony Part 2. And thankfully, I had just rewatched Hegemony Part 1 so that it was all fresh in my head. So I wasn't like, wait, what happened? What's going on? What happened? So, yeah, this was fine. I think they did a good job of not totally going off the rails, not totally jumping the shark, as Part 2s of Star Trek 2-parters have done in the past. I think of Time Zero Part 2. Honestly, Time Zero, I've always said, could have just been 1 part. It didn't need to be a 2-parter. And then Descent Part 2 went way off the rails. Even when I get into Voyager, Equinox Part 2 went way off the rails. Turned Janeway into a raging psychopath all of a sudden. So it avoided that. It kind of played it safe, didn't go too far off the rails. It wrapped up the story nicely from episode 1, or from part 1, I should say. So, yeah, it was fine. There was some exciting moments. I did like Pike making his like instantaneous, like unorthodox decisions that he makes, like he did in the Memento or Mori episode from season 1, which I really liked a lot. I love Pike's captaining style when he does that, and that was fun. Pelia and Scotty, we get the first kind of interactions between those two, and we got a little bit in part 1 last season, but getting a little bit more of that, and that's something that I really enjoyed. Yeah, so it was pretty good. My big hang up on this episode is the big climax, the big climactic event. It's kind of anticlimactic to me. It just felt like they were trying to do too much at the same time. Like Pike was, flying the ship into the sun or whatever, and at the same time, Luann and those guys all are escaping, and Luann is contacting them like, "Oh, you have to beam off 200 people," and it seems like they're like flying to a freaking sun. It should be like, "Sorry, Luann, we're busy right now." Like, how would they be able to even have a conversation with her in that moment, let alone beam 200 people off the screen, off the ship, off screen? It just seems like that didn't really happen. And I just don't buy it. It's just like they just told us, "Oh yeah, we just magically beamed 200 people off." So there's been a lot of inconsistencies in Star Trek over the years, whether you can beam that many people at once. First of all, also they had to have their shields up. Another YouTuber pointed that out. So it's like it didn't happen. Like, I don't really believe that happened. Like, okay, I guess if you say so. It just didn't feel real to me. Yeah, we just beamed 200 people off. Yay. I mean, it just seems so, everything just seems so contrived. I don't know. It just didn't work for me. It just didn't work for me. But overall, the episode was fine. We knew that Marie Battelle was going to live because we saw her in the preseason trailers. However, I do like kind of the twist that maybe she's not totally okay. And we get more into that in later episodes, but this is episode we're kind of setting up for, well, she's not out of the woods yet. And I like that. And I've always liked the relationship that she has with Pike. It just was always felt like a real relationship because they have spats, they argue, but they love each other, kind of thing. And it's not a perfect relationship. You could probably look at some issues there that they need to work on, but it feels real, which I can't say about a lot of relationships. There's one coming up later that I will talk about. Anyways, so my rating out of 10 for Hegemony Part 2 is a 7, which is less than what I gave Part 1, but I'm going to give the overall Hegemony Parts 1 and 2 conglomeration unit, I'm going to give it an 8 total. But for this particular episode, that's all I'm focusing on is a 7 out of 10. And now we can move on to episode 2. Okay, so now we get into season 3, episode 2, Wedding Bell Blues. And I have now seen the first 5 episodes, so I can say with confidence through the first 5 that this is my favorite episode of the season so far. And I know I'm the only one who thinks that. I mean, I haven't really heard a lot of hate for this episode, just more like it was okay kind of vibes from a lot of people. But the thing that really makes it for me, and we'll get into the terrain of it all in just a couple minutes, but the thing that really makes it for me is the conclusion of the Spock and Chapel uh, relationship, and how they do it in a way that really moves forward Spock's character. What it reminds me of a lot is another episode that I liked more than a lot of other people from season 1, which is the Elysian Kingdom. And I liked M'Benga's story arc in that episode, where he is forced to let go of his daughter and accept that it's okay for her to be happy without him off in the nether regions, wherever in the nebula out there somewhere, and it's okay, and he can let her go. And I found this to be kind of a very similar sort of arc for Spock, where he has to show his love for Chapel by sacrificing her as his partner, like just letting her go. Like, she's off of Corby now, she's not mine, and I care for her so much that I'm willing to fight for the reality where that is the case, where she's not marrying me, she's going to eventually marry Corby. He doesn't know that yet, but that he actually fights for that reality. That's how much he cares about her. And Luann had a line, something to that effect at the end, like, that's, you showed that you loved her in your own way, but basically by letting her go. And I thought that was really beautiful. Also, this is another stepping stone. Spock moving away from being a whiny bitch boy from season 2, which it was kind of annoying. This is a stepping stone towards Spock becoming the logical Leonard Nimoy Spock that we see in the original series. And we know that's where we're building to. So anytime anyone complains about Spock being, not logical enough or too emotional, remember, we're building to that. They told us that in Those Old Scientists, because Boimler comes back and sees Spock smiling, and he's like, "Oh no, I caused this," and Chapel's like, "Well, no, you didn't. He's being like this. We learned he's still on the path, despite the way silliness that he was, the silly way that he was behaving in season 2. They told us, no, he's still going to become the Leonard Nimoy Spock who ends up, with unification and the Romulans and all of that stuff. Like, we're still heading in that way. They told that to Boimler, so we're still going there. And that's what the show was telling us. So this was another stepping stone in that direction, although we'll get into the Luann of it all in another episode. That's not really so much here. We get a little hint of Luann and Spock here, but it's just kind of more. At the time, I thought, oh, they're developing a nice little friendship here. We'll see about that. But that aside, I think it's a really nice character story for Spock, and that's the main reason that I love this episode. And that's why I love it more than anyone else, because other people are ignoring that. I've heard more than one person complaining about they're tired of the lovesick Spock. But do you not understand that this was the conclusion of that? Did you watch the same episode? I don't understand people complaining about that. Did you not see that this wrapped that up? Or at least as far as Chapel goes, anyways. But that storyline is wrapped up. That's why I liked it, because we're ending the lovesick Spock bullshit. Now, of course, we have to talk about the terrain of it all. I first heard last year sometime that Rhys Darby was going to be in the show, and we saw him in the trailer, and almost certainly we knew he was going to be Trelane. And it has been confirmed, even though they never called him by name. It has been confirmed. This was Trelane. And I was a huge fan of Our Flag Means Death. It got its own death prematurely, canceled after just 2 seasons. It was a shame. And he was great in that. And when I heard he was going to be playing a character who's most likely going to be Trelane, I was like, oh, God, that is perfect casting. Perfect casting. And it was. He was absolutely magnificent as Trelane. You can barely tell the difference between him and the original actor. I mean, you can, but like he brings his own flair to it, but just so good. And I love the way they were able to kind of tiptoe around canon, because they tell us in this episode that no one can see Trelane as he is. We get to see Trelane as he is, but they're seeing him as a Vulcan bartender or an Andorian wedding planner. So that would explain why Spock wouldn't recognize him. You would think Spock would be like, oh, this seems kind of familiar, but whatever. Yeah, especially with the parent coming in at the end, they would have been like, why have I seen this before? But let's talk about the parent coming in. It's Jonathan Delancey. It's Q. They're tying Trelane in to Q finally as canon. I've heard a lot of people talk about that this has to be Q2, because apparently in all time Q's only ever had one son. And I guess they did kind of imply that in Voyager, that he hadn't had a son before. I don't know. So in order for that to work, it's got to be, timey-wimey stuff like the Q exists outside of time, that sort of thing. But then they also said that he was like, 8,000 years old or something, which is an infant in the Q times, but he's been around for 8,000. So I don't know. I don't really know that this is Q2, and I'm not thinking of it in that way, honestly, or Q Junior, or whatever you want to call him. That I'm kind of brushing aside. If other people want to get excited about that, that's their choice. I'm just more focusing on the fact that Trelane is a Q, and that's all that matters to me. I'm not going to say one way or the other whether I think this is Q Junior, because I don't know. Because you have to kind of do some time bendy stuff to make that work, and maybe that's what they're doing. I don't care. Anyways, absolutely loved all of that stuff. Couple of the things, I had a little a nitpick that I mentioned in my my written review. Why is Scotty get invited to this very exclusive bachelor party that Spock has with like 4 people? Scotty's been on the ship for 3 months. Like, how does he get it? Oh, right, he's a main character. That's right. And I didn't love the joke that he doesn't drink, because of course we know he's a raging drinker in TOS. And it's a little ha ha ha, look, he doesn't drink when he's younger. Like, okay, I mean, didn't kill things for me, but it wasn't my favorite thing. Anyways, that's just a little nitpick. I loved this episode. I really did. I think I liked it more than most of the people. So my rating out of 10, and I'm standing by my original rating that I gave a couple weeks ago. My rating out of 10 is a 9. This is my favorite episode of the season thus far. I thought it was a great story arc for Spock, a really beautiful story for Spock, and the Trelane stuff was just absolutely fantastic. So I love this episode. 9 out of 10 from me. All right, so now we get to move on to season 3, episode 3, Shuttle to Kenfori. Now, unfortunately, this is going to go down in history as the zombie episode. And I say unfortunately because to me, that's not what the focus of the episode was. And that's not what made the episode a good episode for me. And I did think that it was a really good episode, but it had nothing to do with the zombies. In fact, I really firmly believe that the zombies should not have been in this episode at all. Like, I don't think you needed the zombies. I think the only reason that they were there is so that they can say, oh, look, isn't this cool? We're doing a zombie episode. That is the only reason that they even have the zombies in there. Like, Akiva Goldsman and whoever else are just like, oh, we did a musical episode. Wouldn't it be fun to do a zombie episode? So let's throw zombies into an episode that they don't add anything to. They don't add anything to this episode. I think you cut the zombies out. You could make the Klingons the main adversary, and you still have the heart of the episode, which is the character stories, and that's what this episode was. You had 3 different ones going. And you could have just had the Klingons being the main adversaries. Now, you probably have to ratchet up the tension a little bit on the Klingon attacks. That was dialed down a little bit to make room for the zombies. But I think you could really turn up the dial on the tension with the Klingons and eliminate the zombies altogether. You didn't need them in the episode. But of course, people who are fans of the zombie genre are like, oh, cool, zombies, whatever. But just take a step back and look at it from a storytelling perspective and tell me what the zombies added to the story. Nothing. You could have just easily cut them out. And the episode would have been better for it. So getting into the character stories, this is where the Pike and Batel story takes an interesting turn here. This is where we learn the cure that they're going after is not really going to be a cure. That basically merging Patel's DNA with Gorn DNA, and they don't really know what kind of effect that's going to have. And they kind of keep this from Pike for a little while. So Pike confronts M'Benga about it when he learns about it. And I love the friendship between M'Benga and Pike in this episode. Much like I said with the romance between Batel and Pike, they argue, they bicker, but it feels real. Like this is like a real bond that these two characters have. So I love a lot of their scenes that they have together in this episode. And I'm trying to think if they've really had this before. At least not very often. So I love this pairing of Pike and M'Benga. And I love this little twist that, we don't really know what's going to happen. And then at the end of the episode, Pike confronts Marie herself about this, and she's like, well, this is my choice. You would have tried to take over, and I didn't want that. So my body, my choice. Basically is what and I think he concedes that at the end, like, all right, okay, but I love you. Like, and I thought that was all really nice and really interesting. This already is better than anything they did with Pike in season 2. Pike got an incredible season-long story arc in season 1 with an just banger of an ending. And then season 2, what was his through line? He didn't really have much of one. So yeah, so this already is better. This is why after episode 3, I was like, "Oh, look at this! Season 3 is really looking good." That, and also the other storyline with Ortegas, talking about character pairings. Ortegas kind of butting heads with Una a lot in this episode, and Una holding her ground. This is one of the first times, if not the first time, where we actually get to see Una in an extended role in charge of the ship. Like, we usually, if we see her in charge of the ship at all, she's just kind of sitting in the chair and just not doing much while the main focus is whatever Pike is doing, and we don't really focus on her being in charge of the ship. And I was wondering throughout this, how would have Pike handled this situation differently? And I don't really know the answer to that, and it doesn't matter because Una is in charge, and Ortegas needs to respect that. And I did like the ending where she kind of dresses her down. I know some people call that a slap on the wrist. I think that's actually more than what most Star Trek characters would get in other Star Trek shows, like saying you're off duty for 2 weeks. Although they undo it in the future episode, we don't have to worry about that right now. That's not pertaining to this episode. In this episode, I liked that confrontation. Worked really well for me. And I like that we're doing something with Ortega's finally. We're giving her a story arc and a very interesting one. Because Ortega's is a character we don't know what's her fate is because she's not in the original series. So what happens to her? So this is so finally we're going somewhere with her. And I found that to be fantastic. Now, the third character story, probably my least favorite, but I liked it better than what they did in season 2, and that's with the Mabanga, kind of his trauma from being in the Klingon War and all of that, and then we're doing a follow up to episode 8 of the previous season. I heard people complaining that this is too soon after, like, in terms of number of episodes, because this is so 9, 10, 1, 2, this is like 5 episodes later. I don't have a problem with that. I actually want this to be done with. I did not like the all of a sudden out of nowhere Klingon war trauma that they gave Mabanga, and I really didn't like that episode 8. I thought it was trying too hard to be like a Deep Space Nine episode and just failed spectacularly. And I hated that they obscured who what was really happening with Mabanga when he was getting in that struggle with that ambassador dude, whether he killed him or not. Because to me, it was super fucking obvious that he killed him. So why are you going to make it blurry and obscure it and try to make it some kind of ambiguous thing? Yes, obviously he killed him. I actually saw another reviewer too that complained about that they revealed that. They wanted it to be a mystery, but it wasn't a mystery to me. To me, it was fucking obvious that he killed him. Like, of course he did. I'd never questioned it for a second. So to me, I didn't understand why they made it ambiguous. I thought that was fucking stupid. So I was like, thank God they're finally just telling you what they should have told you in episode 8 instead of waiting. 5 episodes is too long to wait to tell us this. Not too quick. So I liked that they kind of resolved that, and I thought that the confrontation with him and the Klingon, the daughter of that ambassador dude, that really worked well for me, and that's why I think you could have just left out the zombies and just waited about this, because I think it was a really interesting confrontation here. He didn't need the zombies. Anyways, so I do have to mention that Shuttle to Kenfori is a pun. Kenfori is like the star of all these zombie movies, which I didn't know until other people told me because I don't watch zombie movies. But there were some people speculating maybe he'll be in the episode, but I don't think he was. That would have been kind of funny if he did a little cameo, Kenfori. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. I don't have strong feelings about that one way or the other. I just think the zombies didn't need to be there. All right. So my rating out of 10 for Shuttle to Kenfori is an 8. I dare say if the zombies weren't in there, it could have been a 9 because the characters' stories were so strong. But because of the zombies, I'm giving it an 8 instead of a 9. So that's it for episode 3. Now we can move on to the dreaded episode 4. Okay, now we can get into season 3, episode 4, Space Adventure Hour. I will try not to shout too much. Oh, God. So, if you have been familiar with my channel, you may know that I have not been a fan of the trapped in the holodeck trope. I think that they beat the dead horse and then kept beating the dead horse, and then the dead horse was a skeleton and the dead horse was ashes, and they were still beating it, overdoing it with the trapped in the holodeck trope in the 90s. It was already overdone in Next Generation. Deep Space Nine not as bad as the Next Generation, but they had their Trapped in the Holodeck episodes. And then Voyager, my God, just way overdid it with the holodeck stuff. Way overdid it. And it's the same bullshit every time. The safeties stop working. And so now people can be in danger. You have to complete the program in order for, solve the mystery or defeat the villain or whatever it is you need to do in order for the program to turn off, because it's decided not to turn off for no reason oftentimes in these episodes. Also, there's some other outside danger that's happening. Sometimes it's related to what's going on in the holodeck. Oftentimes it's not. You're just flying into a star, and if you don't fix the holodeck, then everybody's going to die. Blah blah blah. There's always, so it's the same bullshit over and over and over and over and over. And as far as the holodeck safeties, malfunctioning, I have said this before and I'll say it again. The existence of holodeck safeties to begin with makes no sense. You would design a holodeck so that people can't get harmed, period. It's impossible for someone to get killed or hurt or injured in a holodeck. That's how the holodeck would be designed, because it's supposed to be for leisure purposes, for a group of people who are already at risk of death every single day. They're putting their lives at risk every day just being in Starfleet. So if they're going to go on vacation and have something fun, like, they shouldn't be at risk. And why on Earth would Starfleet, or why in the galaxy, I should say, why would the Federation or Starfleet agree to have a device that can kill their officers on their leisure time? That makes no sense. There should be no such thing as holodeck safeties at all. And I've said that for years. It applies to all the 90s Trek. It's just always been a stupid plot contrivance to create danger for these characters. It's a way for the writers to, and the showrunners, to like have settings in different places, like 1930s Chicago or whatever, which is better than what the original series did. It was like having them actually go to planets that are 1930s Chicago. So that's fair, but in order to accomplish these different settings, they had to create these hokey storylines, creating this false danger that shouldn't really exist, and it drove me crazy. So when I heard that they were doing a holodeck episode, I was like, okay, well, I mean, it's 80 years too early, but I'm sure there'll be some explanation for that. So I wasn't super concerned about that. I was more concerned about, okay, are they going to do something new with the holodecks? If you're having a holodeck episode now, all these years later, 30 years later, in modern Trek, are you going to do something new? Maybe shed some light on the history of the holodeck we never knew before. I don't know what that would be. I'm not a writer, but maybe we learn something new about the history of the holodeck. We learn nothing. They do the same fucking thing they've done 1,000 billion trillion times. It drives me crazy. I failed in my effort to not yell. Why? If you're gonna bring back the holodeck, would you just do the same fucking thing you've done a million billion times that was never made any sense to begin with? Like, why? Anyways, where was I? So they bring the holodeck back into modern Trek, and they do absolutely nothing new with it. They just do the same old tire tropes with it. And one of the tropes that I mentioned earlier, this idea that whenever the characters are trapped in the holodeck, there's also another danger outside of the ship, where they're going to crash into a star, or whatever random danger of the week is going on. At least in those episodes, it made sense. Here, it makes absolutely zero sense that they would decide to run this highly experimental program. Well, let's do this really experimental thing while we're also going to this really dangerous star. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would they do that except for so the episode can happen? It is so fucking stupid. Now, as for the program itself, sure, I like Anson Mount. He was fun. Whatever, I liked what's her name, Melissa Navier. I like Celia Rose Gooding. The actors were having a good time. I'm sure it was fun for them to film this episode. Sure, that's all well and good, but I can't get over the fact that they're doing the same tropes. And at the end of it, they reveal that all this time the villain was Spock, which was actually a holographic Spock who Luann created when she asked the computer to challenge her, create a program that could defeat her. Where have I seen that before? Oh, yeah. Elementary, dear Data. They just did the same fucking thing. Like, why? Also, this made absolutely no sense at all. At all. So, Luann creates the evil Spock, or the holographic Spock, after the murder has already taken place, first of all. So that made no sense. And then my big thing is, I have a question for you. What was the real Spock doing this whole time? Was he just in his quarters playing the lair? Was he practicing his dance moves? The ship was in danger! He's the science officer! He should be on the damn bridge! Why would the real Spock not be on the bridge? And the reason is because if they showed him on the bridge, then that would reveal their little trick. Ooh, we fooled you. This isn't the real Spock on the holodeck. But it makes no sense in universe for the real Spock to not be on the bridge when the ship is in danger, especially a scientific related danger, and he's the science officer. Okay, I'm losing control again. Deep breath, deep breath, deep breath. Okay, I'm good. It's okay. I'm okay. All right. I haven't even talked about this cold opening that they did with this silly, sci-fi show, which the murder mystery ends up being about, which I think was kind of contrived to even have that murder mystery be about, writers and actors for this Star Trek-like show. But then to show it to us at the beginning, let me ask you, what were we watching there? Because the only time we ever see in the holodeck program, that scene is on a movie screen when Luann is watching it. So we're just watching the movie screen that Luann is watching. Why? Why do we need to see that? Because isn't this cool? Look at this. Paul Wesley doing a William Shatner impersonation. Isn't that cool? No. Now, I will say that I did get a little bit of enjoyment out of seeing Paul Wesley do a William Shatner impersonation, because I'll say I have disagreements with people who think that Paul Wesley is not Kirk because he's not enough like William Shatner, and I think he's his own Kirk. And to me, Paul Wesley is way more Kirk than Chris Pine is. Chris Pine is Chris Pine. He's not Kirk. And I've never wanted him to flat out do a William Shatner impression. And I've said before, what do these people want? Do they want Paul Wesley to just do a William Shatner impression? Is that what they want? So how do you like that, guys? He did the William Shatner impression. Is he enough like William Shatner now? So that was the one thing that I chuckled a little bit. But otherwise, I thought that whole scene was completely pointless. And another reviewer said that this scene looked more like a porno movie than it did a Star Trek show, and I can't unsee it now. It just looks like if I watch it again, I'll just see a porn film. Oh God, so bad. And I haven't even gotten into the worst part. Llewellyn and Spock, what are you doing? What are you doing? No. We've gotten Spock past the chapel thing. He's moving to being more logical. Why does everyone have to be involved romantically? It was reminding me of Voyager, where Voyager always had to throw people together. I maintain that Tom Paris and B'Elanna Torres was an awful romance. It was put together by the writers, very contrived. They didn't even like each other. they were not a good fit. No chemistry, never worked. And let's not even talk about what they did with 7 and 9 and Chakotay at the end of the series. Voyager had this insistence of always trying to put people together, and that's what I'm afraid Strange New Worlds is doing. Why can't Luann, now that she's gotten past Kirk, why can't she have her own fucking storyline, like her own independent woman? And why can't Spock? He's a man. He should also get his own independent storyline, moving toward being the more logical Leonard Nimoy Spock that we know he's moving toward. Why do we always have to put people together? Now, they do describe it in the next episode as kind of a friends with benefits thing, basically. So I don't know what their intention is with this. So I will hold off final judgment until the end of the season and see where they're going with this. But I kind of wish they just wouldn't do it at all. I think it's a distraction. I think it's unnecessary. And it just makes me roll my eyes like, oh, God, Strange New Worlds, why do you have to put everybody together? Why? Why? We'll wait and see on this one. We'll put that in wait and see mode. But it was just like the icing on the shit cake that was this episode. So my rating out of 10 for a space adventure hour is a 3, and I feel like it might even be a generous 3. But when I thought about it, I'm like, well, it wasn't as bad as some of the bad episodes of holodeck episodes in the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager era. There's some like the Irish episodes, so like some of those like are just flat out awful. And what made it bad is just redoing the same thing, but it's not as bad of an episode as those. So I gave it a 3 instead of a 1 or a 2. And that's where we stand with this. Now I can move on. I can calm down, have some water, take some deep breaths, and move on to the next episode. Okay, and now we get into the debut of my review for Strange New World Season 3, Episode 5, Through the Lens of Time, since I did not review this on Facebook yet. Thank you to Brandon for pointing out the spelling error in the title. It's actually Through the Lens, L-E-N-S, of Time, not L-E-N-S-E, as it is spelled in the title. So I did pop one on Facebook for a second, and just to declare that I cannot believe that they did an episode with the word time in the title that wasn't about time travel, because traditionally that's what they do. Also, past, present, future, that's in the title. Yesterday or tomorrow, if that's in the title, it's usually about time travel. Return to Tomorrow was a TOS episode that had the word tomorrow in it that wasn't about time travel. But traditionally, if any of those words are in the title, especially the word time zero, then it's about time travel. So I said, I can't believe they did an episode with the word time in it that wasn't about time travel. I totally thought this was going to be about time travel. And then both my sibling Mark and our good buddy Darren from D's Reviews come on to well, actually me. Like, well, actually, Mark said, well, actually, they did do the naked time. Well, I didn't say that this is the only episode in the history of all of Star Trek to use the word time in the title without time travel. I said I can't believe that they did an episode with the word time in the title that wasn't about time travel. And the reason why I can't believe it is because they haven't done it since the third fucking episode ever in 1966. So I didn't say they never did it. I just said I can't believe that they did it. And that's why, because ever since 1966, anytime you see the word time in the title, it's about time travel. And then Darren, well, actually to me, but well, actually, there was a little bit of timey-wimey stuff at the end there with Spock and blah, 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 blah. I repeat again, I cannot believe they did an episode with the word time in the title that was not about time travel. This episode was not about time travel. No, it was not. And that is my problem with this episode, is I don't know what the fuck it was about. Now I can smooth transition into the actual review and stop talking about the damn title. I don't know what this episode was about. It was about too many things, which ultimately means it's about nothing. And that is my problem with this episode. Although this is not where I wanted to start. I actually wanted to start with what I liked about this episode, what really worked for me, because this wasn't a bad episode. I think it was a good effort, a good old college try, but I don't think they quite pulled it together. But I will start with what I liked about this episode. And the main thing I liked was this was an effectively creepy episode. This was a good horror episode. I'm not a horror fan, but when I do appreciate horror, I appreciate like the kind of psychological horror that just makes you feel a little uneasy and just a little creepy. When they take something that should be fluffy and wonderful and nice and happy and make it evil, demon, that kind of shit. Or anything with like creepy music, like do 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 do, just it makes you feel a little uneasy. That's the kind of shit that does it for me. Aliens running around going rah, like bores me. Zombies, boring. Unless you're gonna combine zombies with the psychological horror, but then at that point, it's not the zombies that's scaring me; it's the psychological horror. So this is the shit that I like. So they did such a good job, and this actor, Chris Myers, who played Gamble, magnifique. And I wonder if they, when he auditioned for this role, was it known to him? It's like, okay, you're going to be this role. Here's what's going to happen. Like, so get ready to be like crazy psycho demon dude. Like, that's who you're really going to end up playing. That's where you're getting the bulk of your screen time. Or if they were like, hey, you're a new ensign. Oh, God, I'm on Star Trek now. And then here's the script to episode 5. What the fuck? Like, I wonder. I want to believe that they told him that he was preparing for this, because he did such a fantastic job playing this evil, twisted, demented demon. And yeah, the part that gets me is when he talks about M'Benga's daughter, and I don't remember the exact words he used, but it was something demented like, well, what if she didn't go to this happy place like you think she did? What if she's like just, I forget the words, but it was like something just twisted and demented. Like, what if she's in this evil, demented place and it's really all evil? And the way that he delivers out those lines were like, "Rrr." So that's the kind of shit that like, fuck, that like gets me. And I mentioned this earlier in this video, how I really did find that ending of M'Benga and his daughter from season 1 to be really beautiful. So then to just be turned into this twisted thing, like that's just fucked up, but also really good. Another thing that's fucked up, but also really good, the way that they introduce this character. Like, they introduced him to us in episode 2 and showed him a little bit in each of the episodes up until now, so that we get to know this character, and we're like, oh, we see that M'Benga cares about this character, thinks of himself as a mentor. I thought, at least, that we're going somewhere with this character. I'm like, oh, this is a new incident. I mean, he's not in TOS, but where's he going? We got a new character. This is cool. I did not see this coming at all. For them to get us to care about this character and then do this shit to him. I mean, it's kind of fucked up in a way, but also brilliant. And I didn't see it coming, because this is not what Star Trek typically does. And in fact, this is the first time where they get it right. Because what they typically do is introduce a new character and try to put that character up into prominence and try to put them in the forefront. And there's at least one, if not several, characters who tell us that they have a past relationship with this character and tell us about things they did together in the past. And whenever Star Trek does that, you're like, oh, well, they're going to kill that character, obviously. Strange New Worlds, in fact, did this in season 1. I believe it was in the episode All Those Who Wander, where they was like celebrating like Uhura's. She's an ensign now. She's being promoted, or maybe she wasn't an ensign, but she's being promoted. She's not cadet anymore. Yay. And there were some other like people in the celebration, that were being promoted, and like, oh, congratulations, Uhura. And then the camera pans over, and congratulations to you too, random guy we've never seen before, but we're all gonna pretend like we know you. Like everything Spock was like, oh, remember the time, ensign, when you did this? You have come a long way since then, or something like that. And the ensign was like, yeah, those were the good old days, Spock, my buddy and pal. And I'm like, well, that guy's dead, obviously. And of course he was. And that's what Star Trek does. So to introduce a character, get us to legitimately care about a character, not just tell us to care about it or care about them because the other characters supposedly do, even though we've never seen that. They actually get us to care about this character and then kill him off. That's genius, but also kind of fucked up because of what they did with this character. But I admire it. I admire the art, and the actor was fantastic. Now, here's my problem with this episode, is that I think the episode should have been about just that, with maybe another little B plot running through it, but that doesn't take away too much of the focus of that. Or the episode should have been about just the other plot, which is I call the escape room plot, because they're basically in an escape room. They got to solve the riddle to get out of there. But it's like a weird interdimensional timey-wimey escape room kind of thing. And I don't think they paid enough attention to that, because to me the whole thing was confusing and disjointed. Like I didn't understand what one thing had to do with the other. It's just like they threw out a thing that they wanted to be in the story, and just, oh, now there's gonna be weird interdimensional stuff. We're all gonna be in different dimensions. Oh, now there's gonna be a timey-wimey thing where the effect comes before the cause, and it just kind of comes out of nowhere. Like it just like, I don't understand the point of any of it. And I feel like if the episode was just focused on that, we could have maybe gotten into those details a little bit more. Also could have gotten into a little bit more on who the ancient aliens who created all this is and why they created it. I know they wanted to leave a little bit of that as a mystery. They seem to be setting up for a future episode, but they could have at least made it an intriguing mystery. I don't think they gave us enough information for me to be intrigued by it. Like I would have wanted to at least have a theory about who they are, what they're doing, a couple of competing theories, something to get your brain moving, something. But what it was just kind of a jumbled mess of just disjointed plot lines that didn't seem to connect. And don't think I didn't notice that they mentioned at the beginning of the episode, it was a throwaway line, blink and you miss it, that these aliens possibly traveled great distances across the galaxy. Sounded a lot like the Iconians, and we did see in the trailer there's a gate that kind of looks Iconian-like. Can't be the Iconians because Picard is the first one to discover the Iconians, so that would go against canon, but maybe it's something similar to that, or maybe they're going to find a way to get around canon and call it the Iconians. I don't know. But that was just kind of a throwaway line, and it's like, well, what does that have to do with the Iconians or whoever also capturing these demons, and what does it have to do with them creating interdimensional things and timey-wimey things, and what does this all have to do? Like, how is this all connected? It just seemed disjointed. So I do believe they are setting up for a follow-up episode. We get this little glitch in the screen at the end, and I don't think that was for no reason. I think, and like I said, we saw the Iconian gate. I'm just going to call it Iconian, even though hopefully it's not. We saw that in the trailer. We saw Marie and Pike down there, like by the gate. So I think that we're going to get this in the season finale, New Life and New Civilizations, because New Life and New Civilizations would be the discovery of this ancient alien race, even though they're not new, but they're new to the crew of the Enterprise. So I do think that that's going to be the follow-up episode that's going to try to tie all this together, and I hope that it is able to tie all things together in a cohesive manner, does a better job than this episode did. I want to know about this ancient race, whether they're Iconians, what the relationship was to these demons, why they put them in a prison. I need to know this stuff. I don't want them to just, we just randomly have these interdimensional and timey-wimey powers. Like, come on, give me more. Like, it just seemed random and disjointed. So I want them to be able to tie that together. They have a lot to do because they also have to tie in Marie Patel and why her Gorn DNA caused her to recognize this demon. What does she have to do with it? And if we're talking the finale, they're probably going to wrap up her story at the same time. So it seems like a big chunk of things to do, but if they're able to pull it off, then it could be good. They were not able to pull it off well in this episode, unfortunately. So I just, it was kind of a little bit of a hot mess. So hopefully when they do the follow-up episode, they will do a better job of kind of bringing it all together and making it a good episode, good cohesive episode, which this one was not. But like I said, not terrible. Definitely not a 3 like the last one. So my rating out of 10 for Through the Lens of Time is a 6. Good effort. They had some good stuff in it. Good performance by Chris Meyer. I love what they did with the character, blah, blah, blah. But God, it's just kind of all over the place. So it can't be much higher than a 6. So that's where I'm at with this episode. And that's the end of my review for Season 3, Episodes 1 through 5. So I will be back at the end of the season to review Episodes 6 through 10. However, you don't have to wait that long to see me again, because I'm going to release a video just where I talk about the news that came out of Comic-Con. I kind of want to talk about some things I haven't got to talk about. Comic-Con was a couple weeks ago, but there's the trailer for Starfleet Academy, and there's other things that came up that I kind of want to give my input on. So that'll be in a separate video that will be released not long after this one. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. Please follow me on Facebook, because that's where I do most of my activities these days. So please do all of that, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.